of leadership. Wanjuhi, you are at the center of youth when it comes to young leaders, both in the continent, but also globally through your engagement in the World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. Um, I know you're also very passionate about the subject of how do we build patriotic young leaders. Could you share with us your insights on this, also taking in mind values and inclusion?
Thank you, Elizabeth. And as I was listening to Daktari speaking, one of the things that he said was that crisis brings out the best and worst in leaders. And I don't know how many of us have looked at the way our continental leaders have dealt with COVID-19. For some, it's with admiration. I remember there, and I say this with a lot of caution, but there's a time we in Kenya wished that one of our neighboring presidents was our president because of the way he dealt with COVID in his country, or other factors held constant. But then Kenya is going through what we are calling a constitutional moment. How true or how factual or how good this is another matter altogether. But I was listening to a conversation by a thought leader in my country from not the older generation, but the generation that's just slightly ahead of mine. And her name is Dr. Wanjuhi Njoroge, and she was talking to another brilliant mind called Mordecai Ogada. And they were saying that the previous generation or their generation has failed, and it is upon my generation and the ones that are coming after mine to make things right. And that's very true. You know, it generally, for a country like Kenya, ought to fall on us, young people, to fight for what is right, given that we have no opposition following the famous handshake. But these same young people are bogged down by very many challenges, among them unemployment. And from time to time, I feel like the system designed it to be this way, designed it to be that we are unemployed. And so I doubt that we will see any action from any African government, any deliberate effort from most of these African governments, because they know for sure that come what may, we will always be at their mercy. Anytime they want to implement or bring in crazy things like constitutional changes for their benefit, we will listen to them, because when they give us handouts, we will answer. There was recently, I think 2 weeks ago, a person collapsed because he had not eaten for 2 days. And this is a young man, and he had been moving around looking for work. And he's also taking care of his little sister. And so how do you expect this person to again go to the streets and fight this particular government? But then I looked at history, and every time I look at the fight for liberation and freedom in Africa, I'm inspired, because this was a generation of people who put the good of the society above self. And so how can we birth a generation that's patriotic? For me, when it comes to value leadership and values in leadership, I think intentionality has to be the word and the term of this decade. We need to birth leaders who genuinely care about this country, leaders who genuinely, and not just this country, but every country on this continent. And this morning we were listening to the CEO of Stanbic, and she was talking about empathy, which has again come up with David and Ignatius. We need people-centered leadership, leaders who put the interest of their people first, whether it's in government or in the private sector. Even at the cattle dip level, we need people who truly care about the wellness of the people. And so the broader question that is in my heart as I think about values and inclusion in leadership is, how can we birth a generation of people? How can we raise a generation of people, given that there are no examples to follow? I mean, today, every day in my country, we are reading of doctors who are dying from COVID-19, something that would have been prevented had they gotten quality PPEs. We are reading cases of corruption involving COVID-19, and this is money that had been set aside to help deal with COVID-19 cases, to deal with the pandemic, but somebody else saw an opportunity to make money out of it. And it's quite sad. So we don't have examples, but I still believe there are remnants. I still believe that there are people among us who have died, who are willing to die. When you think about the fight for independence, this was a generation of people that was willing to die for the sake of the common good. And we need to birth a similar generation. We need to raise such people. We need to identify them. We need to celebrate them, and we need to showcase them so that young people will also appreciate that, you know what, there's another way of doing things. I feel so bad when I see brilliant minds being used to sell propaganda by government. And when I engage them, they tell me, Wanjuhi, I am unemployed. This government is giving me $100. $100 is a lot of money at the end of the month. That I will, it gives me dignity. But does it really give us dignity? I feel that there is a huge disconnect. I don't know what will happen. I'm also lost for answers. But I think we can start by seeking out those people who remained true to self and true to country, and celebrating them. There's also the role of networks such as the Leo Africa Institute. And I have struggled with being true to self and true to country. And it's being part of this network, such as the Leo African Institute network and also the Global Shapers network. These friends hold me accountable. And at times when I feel like I want to fall, I want to fail, I want to give in to the pressure of wanting to serve the government and getting a few coins here and there, they hold me accountable and they remind me that we must remain true and there are alternative ways of making money and getting to where we want to go. And of course, it takes time. So there is a role that these networks need to play in terms of maintaining what we call values and also being deliberate in nurturing the next wave or the next generation of leaders. So I feel, I think the biggest challenge Africa is facing right now, which is a time bomb, is a youth unemployment. There is a lot of hopelessness among us, and the governments, many governments across this continent are using that to their advantage. And I doubt this is going to change unless we have intentional leaders. And so I worry a lot about patriotism and how can we nurture nationalism? How can we bring it back? Because we need it. It's the only way. We are 70% of the African population. It's the only way. It is appreciating that this continent belongs to us. And until we take matters into our own hands and create a real movement of change, I doubt anything is going to change.
Thank you.